Daystar television networks Joni Lamb and Doug Weiss have been in the middle of a major scandal involving Christians for a few months now. Audio from one podcast has spilt into another, and the online Christian community has been demanding that these leaders be held accountable. Regardless, Doug Weiss is certainly one of the most prominent players, an attractive personality that is most noticeable in this context. Truthfully, I believe that if Doug hadn't gotten involved, the issues that have been affecting the Lamb family could have been resolved amicably as a family quarrel. Doing so would have kept the filthy details from becoming public knowledge. What makes Doug such an interesting character is the question that needs answering now. Individuality? I personify all of those qualities: devotion, empathy, praise, and growth. Could you elucidate it for us with greater clarity? Was she only opting to disregard you, I wonder? Was I not communicated with? Obviously, it is irrelevant. I was only trying to make sense of it all. My mother would neglect me for 3 or 4 hours every night after I got home from school, either on the phone or reading a story to me. To that end, I am aware of that, and I was something horrible. The noise it produced was that of a black hole. If you really want to know, I actually had them. I am completely uninterested in TOS if you have a genuine curiosity for finding out. Frankly, things are going swimmingly. Would have liked to spend more time chatting with Joni than focusing on blah, 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 blah. That being said, you wanted to know why? Even though it seems like I don't care about you, let me give you some details. I really do believe you. The book does really contain this. Details like that weren't interesting to me. Concerning the details, I am uninterested. I am ready to go on to the next stage now. Jonathan was not to blame for the matter's intricacy. Absolutely no worries there. We need not engage in that discussion. There is no issue. Actually, I'm only going to read a few pages. That CU was handled by us. We may begin now that it is open. So he is beginning there just to kind of confiscate more power from you, letting us into his space. She was always busy with work or exercise before she had kids. Quite occupied she was. Subsequently, she became exceedingly animated amidst the kids. She keeps herself busy while on vacation by reading and using her phone. The phrase, "I'm busy," has been used against me repeatedly during my whole marriage. Based on what I knew of intimacy anorexia, I thought that was when the worst part of it all started for me. Now, number 10, missed the fitting. I needed fresh air. Based on what I knew of intimacy anorexia, I thought that was when the worst part of it all started for me. Like me, my wife knows exactly what's wrong with her and how to fix it. On the other hand, she disagrees. The fact that she is hesitant makes her actions seem quite intentional. Because of this, living with her is increasingly challenging and unpleasant. Although she possesses the capacity to be more kind and loving, she opts instead to be critical and cruel. Truthfully, there are a plethora more. He intentionally gave it a taste, and it was all his. Tragically, during this whole ordeal, we have only heard Doug Weiss's incessant gripes regarding his getting married. As far as anyone can tell, his ex-wife Lisa Weiss is no longer participating in the discussion. A more troubling aspect is that Joni Lamb seems more than prepared to share Doug's claims against Lisa with everyone who will listen, as if it were her personal responsibility to clear Doug's name. It was Doug and Lisa Weiss, though, so let's step back and examine the bigger picture before moving further. These two were extraordinary. Rumor has it that they were co-leaders of a marriage counseling center and experts in helping couples work through marital problems. The fact that their own marriage, which lasted over 30 years, couldn't be salvaged begs the question of how reliable their treatment counsel is. Doug often states that Lisa was preoccupied with something before the kids, during the kids, and after the kids. Cohabitating with her is a nightmare. Despite this, testimony from additional audio clips suggests that Lisa requested Doug to stay on staff. If Lisa was truly heartless and emotionally detached, I fail to see why she is so committed to maintaining the marriage. Having said that, Doug seems to have contradictory accounts. I have the honor of serving as president of the American Association for Sex Therapy. My official title here at Harar is Executive Director. Your local counseling center. Throughout the year, they make the journey to Car Springs to take part in intensives for 3 or 5 days a week. Consequently, I have been working in this industry for over 35 years. There is no man on this planet who has taken more porn histories than me, as far as I am aware. I have abstained from masturbation, porn, and any other sexual behavior outside of marriage for almost 35 years as part of my recovery from sexual addiction. To prove it, I'm going to take a polygraph test. Truthfully, Doug Weiss's academic credentials and career narrative are quite a wild trip. He earned his first doctorate from California Coastal University. Is that what you would call suitable? Therefore, let's take our time. In an interview he gave to the Colorado Springs Gazette in 2002, Weiss confesses that he never finished the project throughout the oral defense of his dissertation. It is crucial not to leave out that information, especially considering the importance of actually obtaining a doctoral degree. But nevertheless, it managed to make it into his resume anyhow. Here, things take a weird turn. Weiss earned his second PhD from Montello University, which was later shuttered by the government. There is a diploma mill here. Without a doubt, a diploma mill. I don't know why problems at my school should reflect on me, was allegedly Doug's response to a question about this issue, saying anything along the lines of, I purchased a counterfeit Rolex, but why are you criticizing me for donning it, conveys the same message. This isn't the right spot for it. At one point, he went so far as to tell his clients to stop calling him doctor and start calling him Doug. After that, his credentials as a marriage and family therapist are also a point of contention. Actually, that was also misleading. His usage of the designation licensed professional counselor was met with a formal slap on the wrist by the State Board of Licensed Professional Counselor Examiners. And your opinion? Yet he still lacks the necessary credentials to work as a marriage and family therapist, even though he has been employed by that company for a long time. Both his professional counselor and psychologist licenses have been in his possession from the year 2000 and 2008 respectively. Would couples and family therapy be an option? Not at all. This person has made a living counseling couples and families, yet his credentials are lacking, and that is what has stuck with me the most. Family and marriage counseling do not exist in the real world. Is he to be trusted as an authority figure in matters of the heart? Everyone makes mistakes. There is no way to define them. When standing on one's credibility and trustworthiness is crucial, nevertheless, it becomes more difficult to ignore a specific kind of record. First, let's examine Doug Weiss, PhD, and his academic career path in further detail. Seems to be the case in actuality. Since Doug did not complete the oral argument portion of his dissertation, he did not fully meet all of the requirements for his doctorate in psychology, which he started studying for in 1994. Fast forward to 1998, and Doug was enrolled at Montello University, completing the requirements for his PhD. Regrettably, the university had no choice but to shut down in 2000 due to a point of discussion was the establishment's status as a diploma mill. Doug listed North Central University as the source of his PhD degree on his LinkedIn profile. The university had already granted him the degree by 2004.RON. Consider that North Central is not an APA accredited university when you look at their credentials. Eventually, Doug submitted his application to become an MAC in 2005 without Colorado licensee for psychological service. He made reference to North Central University, where he earned his PhD in January of 2004 on July 11, 2005. Still, in 2008, Doug had to go via the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies to get his license renewed. On many occasions during the paperwork, he mentioned that he obtained his PhD in 2008, Wait a second, wasn't he just about to say that? In the years 2003 or 2004, Doug, what is it? What? You inquire. After being contacted via email to clarify something, he abruptly disappeared, leaving the investigation to continue without him. So, we've decided to take a trip to New York, where we'll finally meet in person for the first time since you two started dating. It was just your admission that you were to carry her to the pinnacle of the empire by divine command that frightened me. State building, and if my memory serves me well, give her a Tiffany heart. But I saw through that as nothing more than deceit. As soon as you hop on, it's like you're operating on pure muscle. A little while later on, to rephrase, you took note of it immediately. Now, let's just discuss the facts. Please do not talk about how you are feeling. It goes without saying that I'm bringing up the obvious point that you are obviously making out a lot. Like practically right away. No way, I'm not going to feel bad about that. Exactly what you said. Indeed, the purpose of our making out was to see if we had that type of bond. If anything is amiss, I can't put my finger on it. We spent a total of 60 hours chatting on FaceTime in July. Is it inappropriate to make out in such a way, Jimmy, if there is a problem? Surely kiss the H-hound to get rid of it in no uncertain terms. Still, that lasted for 60 hours of talking. Even though we had only known each other for a short time, after 60 hours of prayer and conversation, I felt as though Jesus had been involved in this from the start. Good job, Jesus. I have no idea what you're doing. Tell me what you're up to. Do you mean this seriously? So, if Jesus is involved, exercising restraint is absolutely forbidden. Do you think that's true? Another thing, the situation was different, that is, until you brought up the fact that Jesus is involved. Hold on, I'll say after that, because we have plenty of time to practice restraint. You did, in fact, forge an emotional bond with your own soul. She was a wild woman who had lost her husband. When you came out of your cave, you were the one who took the first step. The discussion did begin with you, so there. You persisted in following her. No one else except you contacted her on every occasion. In the middle of summer, in July rather than June. Indeed, it is you who is attempting to win her over. Just under 6 months after I passed away, as the old adage goes, it takes two to tango. But I'm contending that, as a marriage counselor and consulting practice, you should be subject to greater scrutiny. The founder of Daystar, Marcus Lamb, died in November of the year 2021. By the year's 10th to 21st, that was an accident you suffered. Please remember, Joni, who is his wife, told him everything. She revealed to the audience that she wept nightly for 6 months, consumed by the fear that she would spend the rest of her life alone because she had never married. While everything was going on, Doug Weiss's wife was only granted a divorce 3 months later. Is it just a fluke? I suppose so. However, what really stands out is the way they use God's name to legitimize their previous decisions. The implication is that it is an attempt to censor criticism, since, after all, who could possibly argue against what God would tell me? Doug insisted that God had given him specific instructions regarding his amorous pursuit of Joni. Following these divine instructions, he had to buy a Tiffany & Co. love necklace for her and escort her to the Empire State Building, where they shared their first kiss. Speaking up and saying Jesus is the most important thing in their relationship, Doug assured everyone that he truly believed that. Something greater than ourselves had figured it out. After some time had passed, on June 10, 2023, Joni Lamb and Dr. Doug Weiss walked down the aisle. Jimmy Evans himself officiated the ceremony that they called Holy Matrimony, which solidified their bond as husband and wife. Never forget that Marcus Lamb had an extramarital affair with a married woman for 7 years. Something like that may happen, in my opinion, exceedingly difficult for Joni. The fact that they had built an empire together probably had a role in her decision to stay. After that, when the chance came her way, she apparently wasted no time putting Marcus's past in the past and moving on with the man she could have wanted all along. This time it was someone else's, in just 6 months. My spouse. Having this talk with her like a friend and confidant would. Oh, I see. However, sentiments developed as a result of the friendship's development of an emotional connection. I have been involved with this from the start, and I continue to be involved with it now. Your professional demeanor allowed you to develop an emotional bond with D. What followed is detailed here. Over time, he began to feel emotionally connected, started to form a bond on an emotional level. End your relationship with your dad. Develop a strong emotional bond with a married individual, plus he had a spouse or whatever. Are you afraid to inquire as to the purpose of our conversation? It doesn't matter. It's quite similar to how it starts, isn't it? That's all I'm trying to say. Totally different from one another. Nowhere else can you find anything similar. You can use the audio too. There is no mistaking the devastation that Doug has done to the Lamb family. It is plain to hear. Maybe this kind of chaos wouldn't have happened if there had been someone else involved. When thinking about the impact her family has had, one could wonder if Joni hadn't wed someone else, someone who wouldn't have caused quite the stir. Should she have thought about her family's future, maybe things might have turned out differently if they had included their ministry as well. Still, you can't deny the reality anymore. There was a love tale and a story about how circumstances played a role. Everything that Joni and Doug have worked so hard to build, the family, their ministry, and the world at large, has been severely impacted by the decisions that were made.